3 Northwest 92 Street, applicant Ashley Bone and Matt Bone. Interim
Thank you,
Director.
Mr. Chair. Again, the address of the property is 173 Northwest 92nd Street. The lot is approximately 9,225 square feet, and the existing structure is to remain with a small addition. The existing home is approximately 1,100 square feet, so the proposal is to add 280 square feet, so it's a small addition on the east side of the property to include a couple bathrooms and closets. So basically, again, as I stated, a small addition on the east side of the property, and the reason it's before you is it is visible from the right of way. It does meet the village code, zoning code, and there are, again, standard conditions, except for in the rear, they need to provide for a garbage niche of at least 40 square feet. So that's the only additional condition. With that, we're recommending approval because it does meet code and the setbacks are all met on the new structure. With that, I'll be happy
Thank
to
you.
answer any questions or turn it over to the applicant.
Any questions for our Interim Director? Would the applicant like to make a presentation, discuss the project? Anything to say?
Hi.
Hi.
Matt Bainey, 260 Northwest, 112th Terrace. And we're not the homeowners. We're working with the homeowners on the management of the project and design. And yet they have a 3-1, and so they're looking to bring it up to a 3-3 with some, let's say, modern closet space. And fortunately, they had 10 feet. They had our setback on the sides are 10 feet here in the shores, and they had 20 feet. So it allowed for a natural extension off of the 2 bedrooms on the east end of the home, maintaining the look and feel from the street and, giving them that additional space to get the additional bathrooms and closet space. So, and as the gentleman said, the garbage niche is definitely called out and now incorporated in the plans to bring that up to code as well.
Thank you. Any questions from the board to the applicant? Any public comment on this issue? Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve subject to staff conditions.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Appreciate your time this
Motion
evening.
passes. Thank you. Item 8B, RSP 2416, 125 Northeast 107th Street. Applicant Maury Chore, agent Wesley Castellanos.
Good evening, again. The lot located at 125 Northeast 107th Street is approximately 9,225 square feet in size. And basically, this is a garage conversion of 213 square feet. And with that, there's some, there are a few changes to the front facade. So again, there's really no change to the square footage of the existing footprint. It's just basically the as I stated, the front facade. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board to Interim Director? Wesley, would you like to make a presentation?
Yes, I would just like to make a small statement about the project. My name is Wesley Castellanos, registered architect, Castellanos Design Studio. My firm represents the applicant, which is 125 Northeast 107th Street. The request for this project is basically a garage conversion. We're not making any modifications to the exterior as in an addition, other than removing some illegal cladding that was done to the facade. I did have a deficiency in my application, which was the renderings, because I started finally seeing renderings being put in the application, which I requested like 8 years ago. But if I may approach, I do have renderings of the
Good.
facade.
rest of that. Yeah, we'll show.
So this is a humble request for basically a garage conversion. So what you're going to see in the facade is basically the garage door being removed, putting a solid wall. I did make some recommendations to the applicant. However, this is the applicant's request of the drawings you see. So any commentary you make for harmonious and architectural features, I'll be willing to answer. Other than that, this is for his home. He did purchase it. He's moving here, and this is not for a development purpose. This is for his primary residence, his homestead. Other than that, I conclude my presentation, and I ask for favorable approval from the board.
Thank you. I got one comment. So I like removing that cladding that's there. I think it's a nice improvement. My question is, you said this cladding was illegally placed?
Well, I could not find any applications in the building and the records of this cladding being installed. So, and
Surprised they
don't-
could install that without
There's a lot of things that go
Code
on in
of-
Miami Shores, we all know.
yeah. All right. I mean, but that's a biggie.
So what the good thing
Yes.
about it is with the interim planning director, with Ms. Tesin, which is
Yeah.
now we have a facade modification that's being enforced. So that helps a lot. That we really appreciate the board and the planning enforcing the facade modification, which since this was done and since it came in front of you, we're removing it. Because then it would require for me to legalize it, and I don't want to legalize it, and I don't think it works.
All right, I agree with you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Just one. So where you're taking out the garage, you have a solid wall, so that's the bathroom behind that wall, and that's the reason why you don't have a window.
Correct.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Do you,
Don't-
Yeah,
is it, I mean, I understand why you don't want a window at that section of the bathroom, but is there a way to reorient the bathroom to have a window on that blank wall?
There is I'm sorry, there is a window on the
On
side.
the left side,
Yeah.
correct. But what, Mr. O'Hara and I we're telepathy here. So yes, the facade would allow to introduce a window to that elevation area, which which the owner has confirmed that he would be willing to apply to make it more homey. And I understand what you're saying. So I would, if we can make that a contingency for the approval, we'll be happy to accept that.
I agree with you. It'll balance the look, you know. You want to make a motion? Oh, I need to open it for public comment. Any public comment? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the application with the condition added of attaching a window to the front, was that west side?
Yes.
Front west wall.
Well, yes. Well, we would say the south,
The the
south
conversion.
elevation on the garage side, but we,
South
that's,
elevation on the garage side.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
thank you very much.
Item 8C, RSP 2417, address 182 Northwest 96th Street. Applicant Joaquin Piñeros and Maria Velasquez.
Okay, the address of this property is 182 Northwest 96th Street. The existing lot is approximately 9,200 square feet, and it's a smaller home, and the proposal is to add about 1,763 square feet to the existing house, and then on another 121 square feet in the front, to basically go from a 2-1 to a 4-4. We reviewed this application against the zoning code, and there were two typos that I need to correct. The existing height of the structure is 21.33 feet, and that will be remaining. And that, we had a typo in the report that said 24 feet, but it's actually staying as 21.33. And also, there is, in the pool, the rear setback is 7 feet, 11 inches. That is the proposed pool setback, so I need to put that on the record as a change to the report. Other than that, there was a slight inconsistency in the square footage, and that's a condition, just as when he comes in, if approved with a building permit, that the square footage be adjusted so sheets 100 and 200 match. So there was just a slight difference there. So basically, other than that, it will be the standard conditions.
Thank you. Questions for the interim director? Would you like to make a presentation?
Hi, good evening. My name is Joaquin Pinedos. I've been a long neighbor of Village of El Portal. I'm also a general contractor, and I have the pleasure to remodel a couple of Miami Shores houses. Now we purchased this property with my family. Our intention is to live here. So we are trying to accomplish a bigger space for our 2 kids, maintaining the actual cosmetics blending with the neighbors.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Exactly, what are you, you're gonna go back, right?
Correct. The whole front stays the same.
Question, on the planning and board staff report, it says 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, but on the actual floor plan, I'm showing 5 bedrooms. Is that just a typo? One's gonna be a
That
den?
might be a typo, yeah. It's 4-4. It should be 4-4.
Any public comment on this item?
Brandon Spurk, 1200 Northeast 97th. Again, I'm seeing some renderings, but they weren't part of the package that we see as a public. So my comment that I was going to start off with was, it's not really possible to evaluate this proposed addition because there's no renderings or perspective views. I do see 5 bedrooms also in the plan, not 4. And bedroom 4 has a door out of the side of it, and I have a little bit of a concern about that door. I happen to live next to an illegal rental unit that's unfortunately not been enforced properly, where there's a cast of characters living in the garage illegally, and it happens to have a door that's right outside of our bedroom. And so I just don't know what the intent of that door is, but I would ask if that door could be removed, because it could be used for nefarious purposes. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but, you see those kinds of doors and you think the worst. The side east yard setback doesn't seem to be specified. I may have missed it on the drawings. The rear yard setback didn't seem to be specified either. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Wesley Castellanos, 875 Northeast 92nd Street, Miami Shores. I reviewed the drawings with the owner. I was looking at it as an architect and as a Miami Shores resident, and the facade at the street. It's kept within the harmony of the architecture of the street. So I would just mention to the board that I find it as a resident in harmony with the character of the street.
I mean, I think the door is from the garage to the side, not from the bedroom 4.
Bottom of the page.
If I may clarify the purpose of that door, I'm a cyclist, so we usually, the purpose for that bedroom is to locate our treadmill and trainer. So I usually in the mornings wake up very early, so I'm trying to put that as my existing house to leave and depart early in the mornings. Not intention to rent or sub-rent.
Any other public comment on this issue?
It's not, it's been there.
Let me ask the board, I can't, or the director. I know sometimes we had approved some applications with a
Covenant?
covenant. that was for garage convert, what was
Right.
what was the requirement? I mean, if there's a kitchen, or, I mean, you obviously
Right.
can't build a kitchen in there.
Right, if it smells like a duplex, it is a duplex. So there's a covenant that, that a homeowner would sign and have notarized stating that the use is for single-family only, and you can't rent it out or put in kitchens or anything like that that would make it a duplex. So it's the owner covenanting, that it's for single-family use.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't see that as a necessity here on it, but I guess on somewhere it's a little, like you said, if it smells like a duplex, all right.
So we could add that as a
I
condition.
don't
Okay,
I don't
so
see a
it's-
need myself,
right.
but if somebody makes a motion with that, that's up to them. Any other discussion on this? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve as per board conditions.
Second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eight D, application RSP 2418, address 1205 Northeast 91 Terrace. Applicant Sergey Savinko with agents Natalia Maliu.
Yes,
I didn't quite get that right, but
Natalia Maliu.
Maliu, oh, I did.
Pretty good.
Interim Director?
Again, this is application RSP 24-18. This is, the applicant is, the application before you is at 1205 Northeast 91st Street, and this lot is currently vacant. The lot size is 10,000 square feet, and the applicant is proposing to construct a new two-story single-family residence with just under 6,700 square feet. And it would contain 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. Of course, since this is vacant, it's just not the house, but also the swimming pool, driveway, and landscaping. And we have reviewed this proposed residence pursuant to the village's code, and it is consistent with the code. The conditions are standard, and I would like to point out, and I think the applicant, the agent will continue to do this, discuss this further, but because this is on the east side of the village, and obviously we're on septic and with drain fields, there is a new federal requirement that drain fields have to be 3 feet above above sea level. We discussed this with the building official today. So the reason for the retaining wall is that's where the drain field is, and it's on the eastern portion of the property. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we could discuss that a little further. I might as well state it now. Because of that height, it's 2 feet 6 inches or 3 feet. The retaining
30 inches.
30 inches. I'm sorry, 2 feet 6 inches. It doesn't meet the requirement to have it a fence there, but we're recommending an additional condition to possibly put some landscape strip in that area. So there is this buffer between the grassy area and the actual retaining wall. So that would be an additional condition.
A strip, what do you
We're
between the
saying-
back of sidewalk and the
Well,
wall?
between the top of the retaining wall, going back into the property a little bit, so there is this little buffer, because it is a 30-inch drop. So at the top of the retaining wall, have some landscaping or something that just allows you,
Oh.
that stops you from
So
going over the
some
ledge.
sort of a barrier.
Yes. So that would be an additional recommended condition. Thank you.
Can I ask one question first? What is the rule on the, drain field height above, and that's above mean high tide?
The building official stated sea level. Am I correct?
Or maybe you know the rule.
Yeah,
It
that's
has to be 3.5 feet above
3
the
feet,
sea
3.5.
level.
Okay.
And so the drainage field cannot go below that. And due to the fact that this is so low, the existing land is at 4.5 feet. You have to raise the drainage field upwards for
So
any new
that's the,
septic tank.
that's the minimum elevation
Yes,
for the
and
drain
we're
field.
using drip septic system, so it's required the least amount, is the least amount of depth that can possibly
And
be used.
this is the problem we see on 104th Street with all of the septic tanks getting rebuilt there.
And you'll see this more and more.
Any,
So
any
the-
questions for the, Napier, you had a question?
Not a question,
Or
really,
comment.
illustration to show what you were talking about for the retaining wall. This is 1298 Northeast 98th Street. That's something like that would be perfect. It's a very similar style home.
Yes.
The retaining wall runs the full length of the property on the east side?
No, it runs the entire length of the septic system, and then it slows down back to grade level.
How much of the second floor extends over the drain field?
About 11 feet,
11 feet?
yes.
I just want to comment, this is another 62 FMR,
FAR.
FAR modern cube. And I went by today and looked at this, and I go by that house fairly regularly because it's on a street I walk on, and it's currently a vacant lot. And this would be by far, maybe with the exception of one house that is on the south side that is under construction, that is anywhere as near as big as this, right?
So I looked at the areas, at the properties in our vicinity. So we have a few houses. One behind us is 0.63 FAR. The one on 1275 Northeast 93rd Street is 0.49 FAR. 1298 Northeast 95th Street is 0.51. 1276 33 Northeast 93rd Street is 0.48. 1202 Northeast 93rd Street is 0.54. And this is a little bit south, it's 1420 Northeast 101st, and it's 0.60, and ours is proposed 0.56, so.
How much?
0.56. So within the new construction that is being built in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 streets off us, we're in the middle of it.
But you know, if you look at your location map picture, not next to your site map picture, you will notice the size of those houses as you march from east to west in comparison to the size of your house on the location map,
So
on both sides of the street.
if you take our street, there is not a single house that is a new construction. All the houses are built between 60s and 70s. So yes, they are mostly single-story houses, and there's maybe a
There's a
handful
number
of.
of two-story houses on
Yeah,
the
there's,
block, and some of them
that
very
specific
attractive.
block is. The ones that are going south, continuously, all the new houses are what I am bringing up as an example.
Could I make a point real quick, just a point of information? So, again, apologies, new person here. It's my understanding, there is no FAR requirement in the code. I know that you're doing like kind of a sampling of, to get to this harmonious concept.
We're just using that as a metric for
Right.
discussion.
I would caution about using that as a metric. There's different ways to calculate FAR, and because we don't have FAR in the code, we don't have a defined way of calculating that. So using numbers that have not been vetted against a specific standard to consider FAR of this house versus another house is, I think, a bit irregular, because there's different forms of calculation. I would,
Now, we're now going on an 18-month discussion of this, so I think everybody is fairly aware of all the issues with FRA. And
well,
not to
just in
cut you
terms
off,
of,
but
just in terms of
to the next-
comparison, right, that's my point of comparison, is I don't know how, they've calculated their FAR, because we don't have rules about how to calculate FAR, because we don't have FAR. So just in terms of comparing this property against another property, that's my caution there. I would look at lot coverage, because that's a more standard, easier to look at, especially as we've heard concerns about sustainability and stormwater and drainage and all of that. And there is significant open space here. I mean, one of the benefits of having septic, I would say, is that you do have to have more open land than your code actually requires to meet the state regs on the drainage fields and for septic. So that is a benefit, you know, in your favor. It's my understanding how it's been explained to me is that this is not a design review board, and stepping into the territory of that opens this process up to a lot of criticism. There's state rulings, and the attorney, I'm sure, is well aware and can chime in, and I believe she has at other points, about wading into design when we're talking about harmonious. Moving forward, I think it'd be very helpful to have a definition of that, and that's a thing that we need to work on. And I get your frustration about this 18-month process, and we're going to get to the chairman's discussion items, because that's plain to me that that's a necessary step here. But back to my point, I would focus on lot coverage instead of FAR, because a lot coverage is an easier thing to compare, because there's a more set standard for that. That's my input on that.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for staff. When was the building demolished, and who demolished it?
That, I don't,
It's been a while.
Okay.
It's been at least a year and a half.
So just to be clear, you don't need
It's-
you don't
that's
need
not
an
our
approved building
jurisdiction.
permit in order to.
that is correct. In
demolish.
this village, unlike other municipalities, there is no, there's nothing to tie a demo permit to a new building permit.
Yeah, we need to add that to our discussion list.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's been maybe 2 years.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, so on page CS2, you have a little bit of contextual map, at least for the neighbors on either side. And you show the proposed height of this at less than 24 feet, and the height of the neighbor's house at 14 feet. But the neighbor's house, the 14 feet, would be measured from the finished floor that they currently have, or how did you come up with 14 feet from?
Because we're in the flood zone, FEMA requires us to be at least a foot, and you're required to be 2 feet above base flood elevation. So this site is at 4.5, let's say average. So we have to be minimum 9 plus 2 feet. And so based on the zoning code, you count from the grade elevation to 30 feet.
Right, I understand. But you're measuring your almost 24 feet from your finished floor elevation, but the finished floor elevation of the neighbors are a lot less. So if you use the same plane or the same measuring stick, you're at almost 30 in comparison to the neighbors.
Correct.
But you're at 24 because of the base flood elevation.
Yes.
I get that. So you're more than doubling the height of your neighbor, and not an extra 10 feet. It's an extra 16 feet.
In all fairness, due to the flooding codes, my my finished floor or any new house in this area would be almost 7 feet above the finished floor of my neighbor. So I'm at the ceiling before I even entered my house of my neighbors on either side. And I would love to be on the same level because raising the house comes with a bucket of other issues that we have to resolve, but the flooding code doesn't allow us to do that. So
No, I understand.
That's where we are.
I understand where we're at. I'm just trying to have that discussion in context with the neighbors, because you have two very low-scale buildings on either side, and then this one is extremely large and not really harmonious on that street. Doesn't really fit in at all. There's no context between the, your house and the neighbor on either side. It's just there. There's no relationship with your design to the neighbor. So I don't know if you can address how you got to that, or if it's just like, how some other architects came and just said, that's just what the owner wanted.
it's not just that what the owner wants. We consider different possibilities. The house came to me already on an empty lot, so I don't know what was there beforehand. Considering that we are hurling with the flood zone codes and have to raise that grade elevation, and looking at the zoning requirements and zoning permissions of what we are allowed to build on the lot, we work with those parameters to create our design. Truth be told, my septic tank is higher than the floor elevation of my neighbors, and we try to offset the house more than the minimum required. We try to shift it around, open it up on the other side so it doesn't look like a massive box. But with the parameters that we have and all the regulations that we have to cover, new construction, we cannot be at the same design criteria as the houses that were built in the 60s.
I understand. It's just there's not a lot of context. There's no relationship between your house and the neighbors, and even when you look at raising it up, the mass of that house is in the sky. It makes it even larger
imposing.
to the pedestrian, where instead, if you had the second and the first levels, swapped, you may not have that issue. But for the pedestrian walking there, it's a massive structure for the pedestrian.
As a pedestrian walking on a street level, the most important thing is to see what is in front of them at their eye level. And what we're doing is we're trying to provide the most open space that we can as the people walking by. And so we reduce the square footage of the ground floor to create more open space, which we are only covering less than 25% with the house itself. And we provided the second floor as the main living space, which is away from the pedestrian's eyes. The pedestrian is seeing the greenery, the open, thank God we have the drainage field, right? So they see the open field. And we are adding more trees. Right now there were a few palm trees on the lot. We're adding more trees. We're keeping the main oak tree that is there. So that was the design intent, to elevate the living quarters and provide the open space where the person on the street would mostly interact with the house. I mean, how often do you walk around? And maybe you do, I don't know, but an average person doesn't walk around looking upwards. They're walking around on their eye level, seeing whatever
Seriously,
they see.
you walk down a street and you have your eye level straight until you come to a massive structure like that and you look up. That's how you're going to look up. I don't look up walking down the street. I walk looking straight ahead until you come to a monstrosity like this. And I'm trying to be nice, but that's where we're at. Just leave that there.
I guess the articulation that I'm struggling with, I mean, when you have your lot coverage calculation 24%, that's the downstairs. But your big, the coverage of the top itself is, 32%, if I'm reading these numbers right. And, that's what's overwhelming, I think, and impact. Usually, I guess, in architecture, that's a little more understated. You would, have the bigger footprint on the bottom and then step it back. Even some codes like the Miami Beach Code require the second floor to have an additional setback from the first. So your upstairs here is pretty much at the minimum setbacks from the way I see this here. And then I guess I had another, unless I missed something here for our director. Is this a side setback of 9 feet? Shouldn't,
Which page are you?
I'm on A 1.1.
Okay, so
To the stair?
the west setback is 11.75.
So if you look at the diagram, all the setbacks to the walls, the exterior walls are shown in the diagram. So on the first floor, you have a setback of 30 feet, 3 inches on the front. On one side, 13 feet, 9 inches on the west side. And then in the back, you have 11, 11, and 14, 8. If you go to the second floor, you have
What sheet are you on? I'm sorry?
on A,
1.1?
on A 1.1,
What about the
there's a-
top left there? Is that 9 feet 0 inches?
9
to the
feet
stairs?
To the stairs.
Yes.
The stairs can protrude into the setback as long as they do not protrude more than 4 feet, according to the zoning code.
Is
So-
that a fact? I mean, a massive
There
stair
are-
structure?
The setbacks are measured to the wall of the structure, and there is an allowance for stairs in the setback. And in fact,
Because this is
30
this
yeah,
is a
30
big walled structure, these stairs. Aren't that-
I mean, they're just, right, they meet the requirements of the code. There is a projections, it's section 509, and it's in the report. Cited, you can go into 36 inches into the side and rear yards.
I mean, this isn't just a slab for a step. I mean, this is a big, massive structure. I don't know. about the
This is the
interpretation.
code and another item that needs to be, visited.
So, yeah, that's what it is imposing the fact that the second floor is so much more massive than the bottom, on that. If there's no more questions, I'll open it to public comment,
Comment between us, but.
discussion. All right, any more questions from the board to the applicant? No, then let me open it for public comment, and then we'll discuss.
Good evening, Maria McGinnis, 1250 Northeast 101st Street. When I looked at this applicant, first of all, I'd like to just back up to this evening of the other house that you tabled or denied with the 2-2 vote. This is actually more massive than, and the lot size is actually smaller than the one you just voted 2-2. So I just want to point that out. I mean, you can look it up on the Miami-Dade property search and see what was there before, and what I calculated was approximately 2,600 square feet was on this 10,000 square foot lot. So if you subtract 6,700 from 26 and put it over 26, that difference, you come out with a 158% increase in the structure on the lot. So I don't know the difference between the footprint of the original building, but, and I'm not on this street, but I know this street, and it's a very narrow little street in 91st Street. It's several houses off the bay, and then you have a little road, whatever that North Bay Shore Drive or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have 3 houses before you get to this one. But just looking at it with the retaining wall and the slope down to the driveway with the septic tank under the driveway, and some people have explained to me there's different grades of septic tanks that could handle the weight of a car. But you're sloping it down. We all know water runs downhill. So I'd like to know, how does this design account for the fact that it's going to slope down to the driveway and run down the sidewalk and flood the next door neighbors? I mean, what is being done about the consideration? Again, the property rights of this individual or couple, whoever owns this, they have their rights, but they don't have the right to flood out their next door neighbor or the ones downhill.
Well,
So,
that is true. I mean, we're not really here, analyzing her drainage plan. I'm assuming our building permit process does that, and there are things of drains and drainage and trench drains and stuff like that that can accommodate that. And you are correct. You're supposed to accommodate the water that falls on your property. So I have to assume our building department in their review takes care of that. That's not really something that we do here.
but is this what the future of Miami Shores is gonna look like on the east part of Miami Shores? Everybody's gonna build up their lots 3 feet?
That is probably what's gonna happen until we put a sewer system in. Yes, go to 104th Street.
Brendan Spurk, 1200 Northeast 97th, picking up where Maria left off. Drainage field. My understanding is that the bottom of the drainage field needs to be 2 feet above seasonal high tide. The property's at 4.94. Why are we elevating this? I don't get that.
The level of the water is at 3.5, and you have to be 3 feet above it.
I don't know if that's the case. I would suggest that we.
Sorry, we asked the building official that question today, and he said 3 feet. So
Yeah, I don't think that's the height of the sea level, guys.
Well, I'm sure that's a known entity.
I
Probably
think
mean
all
high
I'm
water
saying-
is
yeah.
the number
I
they're
would,
looking
I would
at.
think we should get that confirmed. Two,
I
when we
did
build a lift
today, I'm
station,
sorry.
when we build a lift station, we have 2 pumps and an alarm system. Maria's point, I think that she was articulating, had less to do with stormwater and more to do with this very unusual septic and drain field configuration, which may be the new things to come. But there's only one macerator type pump in there, and there's no alarm system. So when that fails, and fail it will, it's going to be a messy situation. And I think that even though this is the planning and zoning board, and this is really about harmony and things like that, this is an opportunity to stop this before it becomes a real big problem, and before we set a precedence to allow these things to happen. So I think, I echo everybody else's comments about this not being harmonious with the neighborhood. It most certainly is not. And I also think that there's some significant issues with regards to that arrangement. I mean, if we're going to allow this, then maybe the tank needs to be set up at the same elevation as the drain field so we don't have to have a pump.
Well, there are already 2 houses in this neighborhood that already have that done, and we approved one a couple of months ago that's actually going to build a 3-foot retaining wall around the entire property.
So I guess the question is, are we looking at that correctly? I think it's worth a second look, because if we keep on allowing these things to be approved and maybe that's not a requirement, then we might be doing ourselves a disservice. But if it is indeed the requirement, then so be it, it's the requirement. I think it's worth a second look. The guest room, which is located just to the left of the entry, is a solid wall, and I think that at the very least, if we're not going to make this applicant, create a design that's more harmonious in character, at the very least, and I shudder to say it, at least there should be a clear story window or something on that facade, because it's rather barren and blank. But it would be my hope that the applicant needs to redo this and provide something that's more harmonious and more compatible with the adjacent neighborhood. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Considering that the neighborhood, and specifically this street, is all older houses that were designed 40 years ago, when you speak harmonious, and considering that we have to work with the conditions that we have now, what would be considered harmonious among those houses? Each house over there is a single-story house. It is pretty small considering the time it was built. It does have a lot of greenery, which we are trying to provide in this situation as well. And harmonious as a word, it is different to every single person. So considering that when people buy into this neighborhood, they are looking at what is there, what is being built, and these types of houses are being built. There are different conditions, and there's examples of them being in this area. If a person who is buying it is actually doing their due diligence and looking at all the requirements that the city has, they're seeing them, they're saying, okay, the zoning code requires this, and I'm gonna spend $1 million and I'm gonna buy this lot because I have a dream for the house that I want. How are you preventing, like, how are you making those people who are buying into these properties and building these houses, like, not wasting their money by doing so? Or if we have to keep the old house and renovate it, the house prices right now are astronomical. So the insurance for flood insurance is more sometimes than the principal that people have to pay. How can people mitigate it if we have to design towards whatever is there now that was built when those rules were not here at the time? Yes.
Could you build a 4,500, 4,000 square foot house on that lot that would meet your owner's expectations?
I have to speak with my owner,
I mean, because I think there's
with the client.
a lot of, there's a subset of, I think, separate issues. There's a issue really just about size and mass, and there is a general concern in the community that people are building huge houses that do look out of context with the rest of the neighborhood. There's a concern that people are building more modern, sugar cubey kind of houses that are not consistent, at least with the appearance of the neighborhood. And I think we had the one item tonight where the guy had built or had designed a relatively large house, and apparently in discussion with the neighbors, the owner, they reduced the size of the house. I mean, I would think that I would have less concern with this house if it was 4,000 square foot than I do with its 6,600 square foot. I do also understand if you're gonna pay $1 million for a house and knock it down, you're gonna wanna put as much money back into that lot as you possibly can. I mean, I understand the economics of it.
Just to correct, it's only 5,500 square feet around, not 6,500. And we did our best to account for our neighbors. We did not overbuild, we did not push the boundaries to the setbacks. We were considered in terms of moving it around, giving more space on either side, on the front. We are working with the conditions in terms of the septic tank. We did confirm that the septic tank needs to be higher. We do have a septic tank design, signed and sealed by a septic company that does them every day. So these rules for the septic tank actually changed, I believe, early last year, where all these requirements came in, and that's why you're seeing more and more lots on lowland having the retaining wall. The retaining wall, according to code, can be 3.5 feet, if I'm correct, and we are not pushing that. We're lowering it as much as we can. It is a modern house, but it is designed per personal taste for the owner, and considering that we are considering the neighbors, we are considering the context, we are putting trees in as much as we can. We will humbly ask for it to be approved, and if we have to put windows in, that's not an issue. But we're not pushing the envelope in terms of taking all the lots, all the square footage that we can.
I guess, just to try to answer your question, I guess if it was just a matter of checking the boxes, saying that it meets setbacks, it meets height, then I guess we wouldn't have a requirement in our code to go in front of a planning and zoning board. You
And
know,
I
so-
understand.
And we're tasked with trying to find harmony in it. Otherwise, believe me, it would save everybody a lot of effort, and you meet all of the things and the planning director says, okay, good. So we're trying to find harmony. I guess that's part of our community, to make sure there is some sort of decision-making, and it's not easy sitting up here trying to tell people they don't think their house is in harmony with the
No,
neighborhood.
the
It's not easy.
frustration here
Believe
is
me,
not
it's not.
just on my end. I'm
You
sure
know.
you're frustrated as well. But when I opened the zoning code, and we've been doing houses all over South Florida, when I opened Miami Shores zoning code, I actually called and I asked, you guys do not have any parameters for design criteria. There is no design criteria for me to consider to design the house. I am happy to comply. There's nothing to comply with.
Well, the only
So-
thing we got is the setback.
Exactly, and the heights.
I got a setback and a height,
And I
that's
had
it.
this conversation with Elise about what needs to be done, and the answer was, you follow the code, and that's what we did. We spent a lot of money doing it. The clients spent a lot of money doing it, working with us. We tried to accommodate all these different requirements. We tried to consider the neighbors, but as long as if there's nothing for us to follow until we come here and present to you, it's impossible for us to know what you want.
So we're a
No,
little
that's
bit,
it. That,
we're a little bit
that's a
out of sync. Yeah.
No, that's an excuse. That's an excuse. You check all the boxes, and I did what it says. Design is more than that. You're an architect. I'm not, but I do presentations to architects about the importance of design, so I think I can talk about design. There's no relationship of this building to the neighbors. You put up a whole load of mass on the front. There's a whole load of mass overlook it right next to the neighbor on the side. You have a little piece that juts out, but the neighbors on the side, they look out their window and there's a whole load of mass. There's no change in the volume. There's no cuts. There's nothing there. You just did what you wanted to do. This
Of
is
course,
just
there are cuts in the design. Look at the front. We're not. This is not a box, right? This is not an extrusion of whatever is allowed by the zoning code. We are working. We are setting back. I mean, the neighbor on the east gets a lot of open space. No matter what we put on this house, the neighbors that are gonna come out at this point in time, they're gonna come out and they're gonna see a wall in front of them, no matter what we do, because we have to raise our house 6 feet 8 inches minimum to even build a house on this lot. There's nothing else we can do with it. So if I knock down the second floor completely, the neighbor is still gonna be facing a huge wall in front of them, because 6 feet 8 inches to get to my elevation, and then a house, let's say 15 feet even, it's still gonna be a wall. No matter how I play with it, it's still a wall. And the houses on either side, there are existing houses, and who knows, tomorrow they might be selling their property and knocking it down because the urban structure within this area is changing. A lot of houses are being remodeled, torn down and built new. And all the new houses that are being built have to follow the current codes. And that's what we are working with right now. When you say consider the neighbors on either side, if you look at the neighbors' houses, like the house next door on the left, I'm not trying to diminish the design of the house. It's a small house. It's maximum 14 feet. It's original. It's one level. It doesn't have any variation in mass. If you look at it, it's a box. If you look at the house next door, it's a box with a sloped roof. The difference is those boxes were built in the 60s and they followed the 60s code and the requirements, and we are forced to build today with the requirements that we have today.
Question,
Yes.
just some clarification. Just want to make right. The total building area is 5597, correct?
Yes.
I guess I'm taking a little issue with inconsistency,
Okay.
I guess, with the board. 1298 Northeast 95th Street. It looks like the same house, brand new, built in 2023. It had to come before this board.
Yeah, Mr. Napier, I wasn't here when it got approved. Neither were
But
you.
I'm saying, but consistency with what has been allowed most recently, even though you weren't there.
And that's why you were appointed, and that's why I was appointed.
Yeah, that's this is the bay.
I've,
you-
I've, go ahead.
You talked to any of the neighbors? Has anybody said, listen, this is what we're gonna build, what do you think? Because I'll tell you what, if, in my case, if 4 neighbors came to you and said, hey, we think it's lovely, it would soothe all my issues with it. I mean, have you talked to, because we've had some houses that people have had a lot of problems with, but when the development team goes and chats with the neighbors, and the neighbors say, oh, yeah, we know it's big, but it's beautiful. It's extremely helpful and helps basically define harmoniousness when you have people that agree with your view. That's how we get to harmony.
So if I could just, sorry to keep interrupting, jump in on that point. We're going to talk about public noticing. I don't think that the onus of that is on the applicant in this case, because there is no requirement to do so. But that's the thing that we need to work on. It's the public notice element, and we need to have a discussion about that. But right now, there is no requirement. I mean, I think what the applicant.
Just sorry to jump in, and we keep hearing this all the time. Just because it's not required doesn't mean that it's an extremely good idea to be neighborly and go and tell people what's going on. Just because it's not required, that's not an excuse anymore. That is not an excuse anymore. We have to raise the standard. We have to raise the standard of how we're acting up here on the board, and just this answer of it's.
So what I
we
would
check
what I
the
would
box.
recommend
That's not cutting it anymore.
is after the applications are heard, if you all wanted to make a motion to make a recommendation to the village council to bring forth. The attorney's giving me looks, but if you would like to make a recommendation.
Wait, why don't let's stay focused on the application
But we
in
can
front
make
of us.
we can make recommendations on addressing this. But I think that her question is a fair one. Architects come in, they look at the code, then they design based on the code. And as planners, that's the tool in our toolbox. There's room for improvement, and I know this is frustrating to you, but I don't think that's the applicant's
No,
fault.
but I mean, seriously, I do this for a living. I bring new projects to boards. The first thing I do is I go to the village website, or in this case, Miami Beach, the City of Miami Beach website, and I sit there for hours watching at least the last 6 months of meetings to get a feel for where the board is, to get a feel for where the community is. And that's my starting point. Before I even have the architect go and design anything, I get a feel for where everybody is. That needs to happen. Some architects are doing it, and some people are not. But you can't walk into a meeting and just say, oh, I followed the criteria. You didn't. You only did part of your job as a design professional.
Can I ask you something? Last month, I did watch the videos, and last month you did approve an extremely large house with an FAR of over 0.7. It was massive as well. The only thing that they made a difference on in the beginning, in the second presentation, they took a third of their box and they pushed it back. So you were left with a box, and a box that jigsawed. And you approved it, and you said, this is meeting with the standards of our community.
I wasn't at the meeting, but
Well, unlike
I
you.
was at the meeting, and what was the house that was directly north of it? What was the size of the lot that was directly next to it, and the size of the house that was directly north of it?
I have to look it up, I don't
Yeah,
know on the top of my
huge,
head.
and a huge house. What was on the east side of the house?
They had a
Biscayne
two-story
Bay.
house, yes.
And on the west side of and on the south side of the house was another extremely big lot with an extremely big lot on it. And the developers went through and talked to the neighbors and had letters and statements from all the neighbors that they thought it was beautiful and would fit right in with the neighborhood. So, I mean, when you watch it, you gotta pay attention to the details that you want, that you have to pay attention to other than the details you want to.
So let
But
me
there
ask-
was specific reasons that we did that, and it related to the location of that particular lot in relationship to the lots on both sides of it.
So what you're saying that, how should I formulate it? So what you're saying is that the lots who already have large houses, the neighbors automatically have an advantage over the lots that have smaller houses on the area because there is no new construction, there is no two-story houses, for whatever reason why they were built.
What I'm saying
to allow
is-
it.
What I'm saying is, the context and location of the house has something to do with the sense of harmony. When you have a huge lot, building a huge house next to it doesn't look as this does in the maps. And having a house on the other side of it that's on a very big lot and is a big lot doesn't look this. And I think that's what John was trying to talk about, was that you got two little houses on each side of you, and you want a huge house. And but I understand all the issues. I understand you work for somebody.
There is
That's
a
what they
house
want.
actually behind us that is even bigger than this one.
Yeah, I know.
And then there is a house 2 streets over that is even bigger than this one. So if you drive around and look for context, there's precedents everywhere within this area, not specifically on this lot, but within this area that have those houses. Talking to neighbors, yes, that is something that could be done with the neighbors. But a lot of people, they're private people. They do not discuss their personal issues, considering that they drive around and see this context happening all around. It's not a historical district either. I worked in historical districts before, and before we made a presentation, this is exactly what we did. We drove around the neighborhood with whatever we wanted to do, and we saw if those elements were allowed and set up precedents for the future construction. And if they were allowed, we believe as architects that this is possible for the future, considering that, again, there's no parameters of what needs to be designed. I feel like we cannot be penalized for the city not having the right criteria. And I am not putting check boxes, like you mentioned, Mr. O'Hara, about what can be and not be allowed, because we went and we did not maximize what was allowed. We did push it back. We did not push the FAR over the limit. Considering there is no FAR, we did speak with the zoning department about the designs. We had multiple meetings, we had multiple revisions, and we did heed whatever their comments were. And right now, it feels like the client is getting penalized for the city not having their ducks in a row for the project.
It's not the way it works. We got to move on. I'll make a motion to table.
Before we do that, have I opened this to public comment?
No.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry. I guess it runs together. Any discussion on the motion? Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a
All opposed?
question? I still do not have an answer of how to modify the design of the house.
Okay. And that's a fair question. Let me give you my comments, and then I'll let everybody make a comment. In my opinion, I know on the last meeting that you discussed, I agree with you, that house was massive, the one on the bay there. When they first came to us, they had something similar to this. They had a massive second floor. And I guess that's what I'm finding as imposing and out of harmony when you have a massive second floor. Like a lot of places, if the second floor was stepped back or diminished a little bit to kind of be in harmony instead of being so massive, that's kind of where I'm at, is if you could try to put some articulation or whatever to try to reduce that mass that's up there on top of everything. That would be my comment on it.
Okay. That is the only issue
Mr. O'Hara, you have a comment?
with the house, the
Dan?
second floor.
Want to make a comment?
There's a lot of them. I think you're extremely talented. The design is nice. I think you can find a solution. I'll just leave.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item. AE RSP 24-20, 468 Northeast 100th Street, applicant Sean Saladino.
Good evening. We're trying to find the applicant. He may be outside. Again, as stated, it's RSP 24-20, 468 Northeast 100th Street. This lot is a single, 16,875 square foot lot. It's a single-story home, and the proposal keeps it as a single-family, single-story home. Basically, there are going to be, the
Right,
applicant
so
is
we don't
not.
find the applicant, why don't I just hold on that one?
Okay,
And let's go to
sure.
the next one, 8F.
Mr.
8F.
Springer is here, so.
RSP 24-21, 10682 Northeast 11 Court, Richard Springer and Sammy Springer.
Oh, okay. The proposal is to do an addition to this single-family home, which sits on a 9,750 square foot lot. The new addition is to the rear, and consists of approximately just under 1,200 square feet. Again, in the rear of the property. There's also a new front porch being proposed, which is 66 square feet, and changes to the driveway. So the current structure is about 1,500 or a little bit more square feet, and this proposal would increase it to almost 2,700 square feet. The setbacks are consistent with the code. There is one existing non-conforming setback, and that is to be maintained. With that, there's a standard condition, so we're recommending approval, but there needs to be a change to the be consistent between CS 1.0 and LP 1.1 to correct the roof diagrams. It's the little, you can see, I don't know how to, the hatching is off, and with that, the proposed, use is a gym and a bedroom, a cabana and gym in the rear.
Thank you. Any questions for our interim director?
No.
Would the applicant like to make a presentation? Discussion?
Well, I'm just.
Or you don't have to?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Well,
Any questions to the applicant?
tell us what you want, what are you doing here now?
Yeah. So I mean, we bought the home back in late 2020, and we just want to add a master bedroom and you know we're just kind of elevating the what we love about our home and when we host people over, you know, the open back area, and we just need space. It's like 1,600 square feet existing, and you know, second room is it's only two of us, but we're planning on growing our family, and it's something that we need in order to continue to grow.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Can you talk to me about the front porch? You had a curved entrance at the, you know, that's shown in the
top elevation.
right.
Yeah.
So you're taking away the pillars or the support, you know?
Right now are ornamentals,
Okay.
and we pretty much gonna be they are round, so we're gonna do it a square. Pretty much it's simple design, and steps right now are curving, so we're gonna do it like a square, like the planters. Pretty much it will match the existing facade.
Okay. And then the roof over the entrance feature in that rendering doesn't match the, I guess it's a roof in a landscape plan. Yeah, it shows like a roof over the entrance, but then that plan doesn't show the roof there. So I'm just curious as to which it would be.
On the plans show Show that, I think it's on page, there's a roof plan.
Yeah, A7 shows roof plan,
A7.
but it doesn't, it's not showing on that rendering.
Well, rendering, it's a little bit darker here, I don't know why, but,
Because even on the sheets that we have, you know,
Yeah.
in sheet A8, it's just, you know, the roof just goes side to side across
side
the
to side,
front,
but
and
you
there's
can-
not a,
You cannot see it from the right of way, in front of the house, it's pretty much it's just one level.
oh no.
Yes. So, we have an open area, there isn't a screen right now, we're gonna demolish it, we're gonna do it part of the new roof on the same level. Also, we have the cabana gym, it's gonna be a little bit bigger, and right now, it's an existing, so we're going to, put a little bit more space. And we're going to adding a bathroom for a future swimming pool.
Like to open it to public comment? Any public comment on this item?
Brendan Spurk, 1200 Northeast 97th. You know, I think additions of this size really should have renderings. What we're seeing here is not a rendering, it's an exonometric. Fully aware that we don't have a requirement in our code for that, something that also needs to change. But beyond that, there's some technical issues with regards to the roof line. In particular, there, you've got a slope that channels water into a vertical wall. You can't really flash that properly. So I suspect that's gonna have to be modified, and ultimately,
Excuse me, that's an existing garage. Where are you pointing?
right here, this is your new part that you have, so you're draining right into that structure here. You have this part that's higher from what I can
It's
tell.
higher, yeah.
Yeah, so that's, and I think that that's gonna cause a problem for you. And look, that's not visible from the street, but the issue is, in the shores, we're trying to set a higher standard. And I think that, one, there should be a rendering that shows the design of this, even if it isn't visible from the street. The inconsistencies in the drawings should most certainly be clarified. But we can't be in a position where we're going to allow something to go forward that is gonna potentially not be constructible and ultimately will wind up being revised in the building department and then produce an aesthetic that isn't what the board looked at. So I think, from my perspective, I would suggest that that should get worked out.
You're talking about the new roof with the existing roof.
Yeah, I think constructability issues with regards to how it affects your built form are important, because ultimately what you wind up presenting here and what they opine on will necessarily have to change in the building department process, and worse, they don't send you back here for them to opine on it. But worse for you is they do send you back here, and now you've gone through the construction document process only to find out that you've got a condition that doesn't work, or worse, you get caught during construction and you find out it's a non-conforming condition. So I think that those kinds of things should probably be worked out.
Excuse me,
Could you address the board, please, not between each other?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but others can opine on that as to whether I'm qualified to make that statement
Okay.
or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just got a comment on that. I mean, really, we're not here looking at construction details at that level. We're just kind of trying to judge, is it in harmony? And the construction details and the drainage details, those aren't really our purview. That's more of the building, review process, the permit review process. Any other questions from, comments from the public? Hearing none, any, discussion? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the application as submitted with the conditions required by staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. We could not locate the applicant, Mr. Saladino, for
So item,
20, so I guess.
item 8E RSP 24-20. Do I hear a motion to table?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
RSP 24-20 has been tabled, 468 Northeast 100th Street. 8 GRSP 2423, Lawrence Golan, 67 Northwest 109 Street.
This proposed single-family dwelling is located on a 9161 square foot lot. There's an existing dwelling, but the owner determined that it was not totally salvageable. So it's 1,340 square feet. So the applicant is proposing to demolish that existing home and rebuild it single story at 2749 square feet. So again, it's a demolition of the existing home, and the proposal is to construct a new home with landscaping pool, new driveway. We have reviewed this application pursuant to the code, and it meets the requirements of the village's code. And in this case, they're standard conditions, so we're recommending approval of this application with the standard conditions.
Thank you. Any questions for the interim director?
One question. So, David, should the owner and the applicant be the same? They're different.
Same.
They're the same. I'm sorry?
They're not, the project is owned by a LLC, but it's, yeah.
So I'm not aware of anything that would stop the owner and applicant being the same, and then there's the agent, Mr. Perez. So is there anything that would?
The applicant's Lawrence Golan,
Yes,
Yeah,
and the agent, David Perez?
yes.
yep.
But the owner is not.
The owner's an LLC.
The,
But they have it already behind it.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say hello everybody again. So this house actually was already
Start, I guess, in your name and address first.
Lawrence Golan.
Okay.
And this is the house, 67.
Okay, all right.
109
Thank you.
Whitney Street. And we've been here 6 months, 5 months ago, maybe you recall. So we didn't really change the layout or anything like setbacks, or we got approved already with the zoning. It's just the new walls of the extension, instead of trying to fix the 1,300 square foot, because we had an addition, we just decided to make it all new, the 3,000 square foot. But everything else remained the same, landscape, driveway, all the plans were the same before and now. So we just did a slight improvement. I think it would be fair enough not to have a house new, half of it, and half of it 60 years old. And sloppy roof, so we made another effort to make it properly equal, and that's it. And I'm eager to
Thank you.
move very soon, so hope you like it. And
Any questions from the board to the applicant?
Could you explain that again? You already have a permit to renovate the existing house.
correct, we did an extension, we got approved with a extension with the addition, with the planning and zoning, but then instead of remodeling the new, the old parts, the 1,300 square foot, we decided to complete it to be new, so we had to reapply now.
So you gonna knock down the existing?
Correct, it's 1,300 square foot and the addition was 1,200 something, but the 1,300 had a lot of issues under, and better to do it correctly.
And the combined old section, new section are identical?
Excuse me, pardon?
The old part of the house and the approved addition taken together will be identical to what this is?
Yes, it is.
No.
It
No,
is.
I
it's not.
can't see, but.
Slight modification, we did slight,
When we did this project, the previous one, we submitted like in November or October last year. We had exactly the same layout, same location on the side. The only difference is that we built, we created in this project new walls to hide the existing house. We preserve the existing house with the slabs of the roofs, etc. Why we decided to remove the existing and create a new one is because of the slabs of the roofs, the condition of the trusses. So we decided to redo the design. Well, I mean the application with a new house, but with the same design. It's exactly the same design.
Any questions?
Yes. The blank wall on the far side, it's just very bare. There's no architectural detail besides some tiling. Is there any way to address that? That's a, you know.
Now what we do is a tile like with a wood aspect. Why we didn't put a window there? If you see the plan, well, I mean, you can see now in the picture, you have the parking, the driveway just in front of a bedroom. So that's why we have all the windows in the east side, so we don't have the lights in the night from the cars. But that's not an issue.
We wanted,
can
I
add-
wanted
add.
to add thin windows that you can't, people from outside would
Right.
not, and would create kind of a privacy. So I'm intending actually, and he knows, to put 2 windows, small, slight ones. But if this is something we can get an agreement now, and we can not to delay anything, because we already did that. If it's okay for you?
That front facade should be, you know, addressed somehow. You know, and we're not showing any landscaping in front of it. You know, it's just very stark.
Is there a landscape plan?
We submitted a site plan, but we will submit a landscape plan.
I don't think, is a landscape plan a requirement? Yeah.
Your landscape code is extremely minimal, that's why I've started putting in the condition, you know, referring to chapter 18A of the county code.
Okay.
You have
And
more verbiage dealing with synthetic turf than actual landscape.
right.
So that's why at
Fantastic.
least we're going in the
Right.
the right direction.
Right. Your thoughts on adding some windows, David, to that side, even if they're small, some type of fenestration there?
It's again up to the board to recommend to the applicant, but it is, I understand what you're saying, the blank wall in front of the in front of the driveway.
And you're okay, the applicant is proffering to add 2 small windows, is that something
So
that can
that-
be added to the
Of
conditions?
course,
Is that
yes,
okay
definitely,
with
of
you?
course.
Okay.
That's an easy.
Is that's to clarify, that's not a condition of approval, that's a proffer.
No, that just came out of a discussion, that wasn't a request from the board, that was a
Okay,
proffer from the
proffer.
applicant.
So the additional condition would be to add 2 windows to the front facade, and that's on the east side.
East side.
Yeah, but the front facade east
In front of
Yeah.
the driveway.
in front of the driveway. And you're proffering 2, what are, the
Two
2
small
two small
windows, is that-
windows?
Yes.
Okay,
To give also privacy to
Yeah.
the people inside. I love windows, but I don't want to see through.
Yeah,
If I may interject just real quickly, in point 5 in the recommendations is, I believe, about separating the driveway from that front facade. So if you provide a landscaping strip between the edge of the driveway where you're parking your vehicles and the front facade and plant some, you know, shrubbery around there, that'll help to break it up
Correct. We are
and,
intending to do something
Yes.
beautiful.
yeah, and that's already in the conditions, so.
the new condition will be that the applicant provide for 2 windows on the front facade.
Well, that's just what the applicant's offering. We don't
Right,
have any
offering.
motion. Yeah.
So,
Let me open this to public comment. Any public comment on this item? Hearing none. Any further discussion? You can make a public comment.
But one second, she is in the.
She's a public, she can make a
Okay,
comment.
I know, she's in the neighborhood, I don't know. so
Yeah,
I don't-
yeah.
I didn't understand.
Uh-huh.
My question is, considering the landscape of the street, all of the houses on the neighboring side, they pretty much look the same. They have a Mediterranean look on either side of this house. They have a beautiful terracotta roof. This house is a box, completely pushed on either side to the setbacks. It has no articulation, flat roof, no changes in elevations, and it does not meet the harmony of the neighborhood in this location. I would like you to consider that not to have double standards in terms of what is allowed and what is not allowed in terms of harmonious just due to mass. Considering this is just a box, a massive box completely at the front of the property line, pushing the setbacks on either side of their neighbors with no articulation whatsoever in elevations, in the facade. Considering that they are demoing this house, there might be other areas where they have to look at in terms of elevations and changes in grading, because now it is a new house. It's not a renovation anymore.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve subject to the applicant, not subject to, including the applicant's proffer, but I would change, I would say one up to two, or one or two windows, I don't wanna pigeonhole them. You know, so that we give them.
Developed with the.
Yeah, as
in
approved by
conjunction
staff.
with- Yeah. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along on the agenda, legislative items. 9A ordinance continuation. This was just mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I guess. The draft is not in final order, but I'd like to just have discussion. I know this was originally brought forth by O'Hara, so do you have any comments on it that you'd like to make? Or any additional comments if we're gonna be
Yeah.
modifying the draft?
Well, first, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank you and the rest of my colleagues on the board for tabling or deferring the item till today to allow me to chime in, since this was my item. I did watch the video from the last meeting, at least that section of the meeting, and I have a different opinion than my colleagues. I would not be supportive of the ordinance if it includes an exclusion of notice requirements for single-family homes. And there's a number of reasons, but some very basic ones. The only 99, probably 0.9% of the applicants we deal with at the Planning and Zoning Board are single-family homes. Why, in the past year, there have been 3 commercial establishments that have come before the board, 2 facade improvements on Northeast 2nd Avenue near Chase Bank, and the Chick-fil-A. And basically, all we would be doing is giving notice to those, and I don't even know if the facade improvement would even come under that. The Chick-fil-A probably would. And that's not the intent that I'm looking for. When it came to the board, this was one of my first requests, and we're finally getting around to it. So thank you to staff and to the city attorney for getting this together. But it's important, and you've heard the discussion that we've had today and in the last number of meetings, and the consternation from our fellow residents, our neighbors, even people we don't know, about the proliferation of demolitions in our community, massive new construction houses in our neighborhood, and the whole purpose of this is to allow the community to know what's happening. And just because we have it on the website, that is not that's not where we should stop. I'll just give you an example of my mother and father. They live in a house. My father barely knows how to use the remote control. He's not gonna. He's not on the internet to know, that his neighbor's house is being torn down. And I gave you an example a couple of months ago of a friend of mine that the neighbor to the east of them, directly to the east of them, was planning a massive extension, a second floor that was going to tower over their property, and they didn't even know. And the reason they didn't know was they drive out and they go down 103rd towards Northeast 2nd, towards 95, and they don't turn the other way to see the notice. And I think we have to do a better job of letting our neighbors know this, know about what's going on. And there was some discussion about cost recovery and how much this would cost. So before it came today, went into Google Maps. I took my house and I did 500 feet. I did the radius, and I went to the county's website and I counted all of them. 60 houses would be impacted if I brought a application to the Planning and Zoning Board. But I've done this for projects myself, for a single-family home, for it not having massive condominiums like in Miami Beach all over the place, where you have hundreds of owners, 60 mailings. Miami Beach charges about $6 a label or a mailing. City of Miami, I think, is 5 something. South Miami, 4 something. So it's not a lot of money when you're talking about a new construction house that all in you're going to be at $3 million, when you have to spend $1,000 to let the neighbors and let the community know what's happening. Very small cost to be able to let the neighbors know what's happening. So it's in the form that it was presented, I would be supportive of it, but excluding single-family homes, why would even we be doing it? That's 99% of what we do. So that was the whole purpose of it, was because our neighbors did not know. We have this over reliance on, we posted it on the website, it's on the agenda. Doesn't matter. People are not. I look at it. I go on the village website maybe once a day sometimes, just to kind of see what am I missing anything, and kind of just see what's happening. But there are other people, they don't do that. My wife doesn't do that because she's not in that industry. All this stuff has no interest to her. But I like it, so I go on and I want to know what's happening. But my neighbors wouldn't. I have 2 elderly neighbors that they have to come over to have me help them fix their internet. They wouldn't be looking at this. So I think a notice requirement at such a small cost is an enormous benefit to our neighbors, and it's a small cost in the grand scheme of things. So that's where I would leave it.
I got a question on that, and I read it last month. I didn't read it again this month. That's the mailing requirement for residential. What's the language in here regarding posting an advertisement in a public paper? What would that be for? That would be for a zoning change.
Right.
Not just not just an application approval, but if we're actually gonna change the zoning, then you gotta make the
Right.
ad, and
So
that was it, right?
Right, so
Okay.
there's the standard legal notice requirements that regardless of whether you have this or not, we would comply with the state law. And then there's something that's a little additional, which is melt notices. And typically, in most other municipalities, yes, single-family homes are excluded because
either A, they don't have, but the character is not the same as in here where the majority is single-family home. And then secondly, if the single-family home is built to code, usually it's something that will be approved administratively. So it's not even something that goes typically to boards when it meets the code at that point in most municipalities. So the reasoning for excluding it is that it doesn't have the same level of concern as, say, a large development or something else, or rezoning, or some other type of application. Taking into consideration that the Shores is different and unique. We mentioned last time when this item was brought that as drafted, it was included to exclude single-family homes, but taking in consideration the public comments and the input that was previously, or direction that was previously provided, that language was removed to capture Mr. O'Hara's concern that was brought up that if it's not included, the vast majority of the cases that, or the homes that come before you would not be subject to the ordinance. The cost recovery component of it, as I mentioned last time, currently, you all don't, we don't, as a village, don't take cost recovery for single-family homes. So all of these applications that are reviewed at the cost of the taxpayer, truthfully. But if we were to move forward with requiring some type of melt notice, it would be village administration's recommendation that the cost recovery ordinance be amended to now capture cost recovery for single-family homes. Again, not something that's usually typical in most municipalities. As it stands, I do think that we should revisit it one more time just to clean up the language, allow the new planning director to review it and provide some insight and that could enhance the ordinance, and maybe now hearing and seeing the first meeting, she can add more things to it. But I also want to just bring up a secondary point that you might want to consider. This, while it will likely move, not likely, it will move quicker than what the code amendments will be for the R districts. That's just the reality, right? So once the R districts are amended, and now we have a code that is going to produce a product type that typically would be something that the village want based on the needs as is, then the melt notice requirement might be a little burdensome. Because right now, I think the intent is to put residents on notice, but I think a large part of that is under the guise that we're assuming that it's not going to be something that is going to produce a product that the village currently needs and wants at this moment based on what's harmonious and what the code is. When you go and change the code, that might not be the case. So now we might be having product type that is not to say that the product type now is not built to code, but you're going to change your code and now still have this requirement. So that's something that I think we should just consider as you decide on what's the best route moving forward. Because I don't want to take away from the chair's thunder in terms of the R districts, but that is something that I believe that the village manager is working on to find the resources to actively pursue that. So, and I know we've been saying that for a while, but I do have concrete information from him to say that we are going to pursue it soon.
Right, yeah, it's just a small price to pay to allow your neighbors to know what's happening, especially since we don't have the technology that some other municipalities have, like Miami Beach, for instance. You can put your email in and you can get notices. If you're in South Beach, you can get everything that's happening in South Beach and North Beach and Mid Beach. You could request those and you get push notifications or emails about everything that's happening there. But we don't have that technology. So the easiest thing is just to provide the mailed notice, and the cost is minimal. We don't have, 400 unit condominiums, condominium buildings in Miami Shores that you have to worry about sending all of those and, international mailings and all kinds of stuff. I've been through this. It's not that onerous.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item? And let me close this item, and then I have public comments here. No more discussion? All right, then we'll move on to public comments.
Maria McGinnis, 1250 Northeast 101st Street. This is a critical issue. One of the gentlemen spoke earlier today, and informed citizenry is what this is about. And, we keep getting told different things, and I appreciate the point that Ms. Wood has just made about this may become less important once the code is in a better shape than it's in. But, it's been 7 months since we passed the comprehensive plan. It took 5 months to fill the position for the planning and zoning director. So at the rate we're going, this is important and it's critical. And just to give it in perspective, in June of 2020, there was an issue dealing with the former council back then, in the midst of COVID, Zoom calls, whatever, wanted to do something about changing the management and the way they were going to entertain what they could do with the golf course. Nobody got notice of that. It was possibly given to the people on the perimeter of the golf course, but not to any other resident. That's, to me, unbelievable. When the seawall came up in 2021, it's my understanding there was something posted on the doors of the residents on 94th Street, 95th Street, 96th Street, where the open bay is. No other resident east of the boulevard or anywhere else on any other street, notwithstanding that we all use that area. So no notice. I've understood that the Shores Estate area that was going to be directly impacted by the upzone by, in 2021 by Stern Development, no mailed notice, no actual notice. Now, they reached out to those individuals, but there was no requirement. So the information that's gone on in the past 3 years has basically been residents like me and those that have shown up regularly to participate and inform our neighbors, basically. So when we talk about expense, we all have other things to do besides be here. And I think that the postage is a relatively minor expense, especially when I'm going to be the one suffering through somebody's construction for 3.5 or 4 years. The least they can do is send me a mail notice of what's going on. And I've seen in certain instances where the signs are not even visible. Like they're off to the side conveniently, or the landscaper wound up, tossing it to the side for the day. And that was actually the one across the street from me. So I take it personally. But also, I would commend to you, most of the things that are in this proposed amendment are just statutory requirements. We've already supposedly been complying with them. We all know that wasn't totally working because we went through 4 first readings, but that's a separate issue. Palmetto Bay has a great example of mailed notices with different circumferences or radiuses and things like that in certain context and everything. But I think we're in the 21st century. Let's also, the minimum requirements of Chapter 166 of the Florida statutes is minimum. 7 days notice, 5 days notice, 10 days notice in front of the Planning and Zoning Board. We can do better than that. And if we're going to give mail notice, it can't be the same as these other minimal notices. It has to be 20 days out, 30 days out. It has to give the time for snail mail to reach the people that are supposed to be notified. Websites. We can use a website. We can have a place for, we used to have it on the website, public notices. There's all sorts of things that could be done, because if the objective is to notice and notify people, we have to be a little more proactive about how we accomplish that. And so I am not about form over substance, I am about substance. And my substance is inform people, let people know so they have a say. Because it's really not fair to say, oh, the residents aren't here to complain. Not everybody has the time to come here and complain. And there should be some sort of reliability that you can rely on this board doing its job and protecting basically whatever the rights of property owners are. But at the end of the day, I strongly believe there needs to be the mailed notice, whatever that radius should be, whether it's 60 houses or less, that, that's up for grabs. But I would also like to see it on the website. I would like to see whatever additional, I know we have like an ad hoc committee on communications. They should be you know, putting in at least input to say what else could we do proactively to provide appropriate notice. And hopefully it will eventually become moot and not necessary because we'll have the right restrictions in place that, you know, people won't have to individually show up every time something goes up on their particular block. So and also, I do believe many of these other, you know, Palmetto Bay, they shift the applicant. The burden's on the applicant financially. It should not be on us. And if it's going to require staff to have any input or any involvement, then we should capture those costs for sure. Because, you know, I think that's what should be required. Somebody wants to demolish their thing or whatever, there should be, you know, because, by the way, all those tow trucks and all the cranes and all the other things that keep coming down our roads are using our infrastructure. So there should be fees associated to that, and I have no problem with that. Shift the burden to the applicants that want to waste a
Well,
building
we
and
do,
demolish it.
you know, we do. There's permit fees when you build something.
Right.
And that's what,
But we can
that's
capture
what
these
pays
costs.
for the building office, yes.
Well, but we can capture these costs, and if there's any administrative
understand.
costs associated with the mail, I think that's important to be captured by the applicant. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'll be quick.
Thank you.
I promise.
Please.
I echo Maria's sentiments and Mr. O'Hara's sentiments. Thank you.
Boy, that was quick. All right, public comments are closed. Board member comments. I got a comment following up on my comments last week where, you know, I've been pressing and I've been bringing it up for 2 years and I can't seem to get any traction on this maximum unit size and coverage of our residential code. Where are we with that? I mean, after we talked last week, has there been any movement or anything on that since our last meeting? Interim Director?
I think he wants to pass the buck.
Okay. Since he's a part-time, a short timer now.
So at the April 16th meeting, the village council gave direction to the manager to move forward with both the R districts and the community residential regulations and to find the resources to be able to do so. So at this point, we're happy to have Judith here and on board, and I'm sure that the manager is moving forward with doing everything else that he needs to do in order to ensure that we move forward with the two simultaneously, like one. Because I think the impression before was that the community residential regulations were being prioritized. And so the direction that the council gave is to simultaneously move forward. And we're still going to have a workshop prior to that. And at that workshop, there'll be a draft. But right now, the manager is identifying the resources to be able to accomplish the task that's been instructed or provided to him by the council.
So the public hearing, we don't have a date for that originally something in June?
No, there's no date for
And no
anything
movement.
right now.
No movement.
I wouldn't say no movement. There's movements that I'm going to defer to the manager to announce to you on the movement.
Well, what I was gonna ask from the board, actually, I put a little motion down here to see if I could get a motion to try to get some movement on this, was a motion from the planning board of a recommendation to the council to amend Appendix A zoning, Article 4, Establishment of Regulations, Section 400, Schedule of Regulations, to include a maximum unit size and maximum lot coverage requirement to the Miami Shores Village Municipal Code, and direct the village manager to support the planning board and provide a roadmap to accomplish this amendment.
I'll move that.
I have a motion?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any other board member comments? I had another motion I was going to request.
You want to just pass the gavel and then you can just do it?
No.
Okay.
I want to see if my board supports me on this. And then we'll see how the council supports. It sounds like they've already had this conversation. Motion for the planning board recommendation to the council to direct the village manager to support the planning board and provide a roadmap to conform our village zoning code and zoning map to the future land use map.
Make that
Already
motion.
done?
No,
I'll make
no. That's what Maria's talking, no.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have two recommendations to the council from the board at their next meeting.
Can we move to adjourn?
A little bit.
Else?
Next regular board meeting is May 23rd, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have adjournment. Thank
Do
you.
wanna give that to
Sure.
Alex?